Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam was the leader of Ethiopia from 1977 to 1991. As a Marxist, he rose to power after leading a military coup that overthrew Emperor Haile Selassie and ruled the country with an iron fist for 14 years. His regime was marked by widespread human rights abuses, including the use of torture, extrajudicial killings, and forced disappearances. Despite his efforts to modernize the country, Ethiopia remained mired in poverty and conflict during his rule. Keep watching to learn more about Mengistu and his calamitous regime in Ethiopia. Please also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps our channel grow and allows us to make more videos like this one. As the 10th anniversary of Ethiopia's 1974 revolution rapidly approached, Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam was hard at work in Emperor Menelek's palace, creating plans to make these upcoming ceremonies bigger and better than ever before. Taking advantage of the momentous occasion, he had plans to unveil his prized pet project, the Workers' Party of Ethiopia, and roll out a groundbreaking 10-year plan that promised exponential economic growth. To emphasize the importance of this momentous occasion, he commissioned the construction of a grand convention hall, the Great Hall of the People, that could comfortably seat 3,500 delegates and boast cutting-edge conference amenities. Under the watchful guidance of hundreds of North Korean supervisors, Mengistu set out to transform Addis Ababa into a revolutionary-inspired cityscape. Giant stars showcasing Marx and Lenin's hammer and sickle were hoisted atop numerous buildings. Triumphal arches decorated with slogans lined the streets. Thousands of delegates from communist entities around the world were invited to celebrate the launch of his special Marxist-Leninist party. To commemorate this momentous occasion, there would be grand parades and dances with lavish banquets served. No expense was withheld for such a decadent event. As Mengistu obsessed over the finer points of his 10-year celebration, Ethiopia unknowingly headed straight towards its most devastating disaster to occur in the 20th century, the 1984 famine. Aware of the impending doom, Mengistu decided that nothing should impede his revelry. He disregarded the issue for months and purposefully impeded relief efforts at his command. Though there was no mention of the suffering masses north of the capital during the celebrations, word eventually spread and spurred an overwhelming wave of sympathy from nations near and far. Life in the rural regions of Ethiopia was often precarious and uncertain, as frequent dry spells and droughts posed a constant risk. Tragically, in 1958, 1966 and 1973 famines swept through Wollo and Tigray, claiming the lives of tens of thousands. Even during prosperous times, families living in these regions experienced extreme poverty that put them constantly on the brink of survival. Mengistu's farming approaches only intensified this strain on the people. In 1975, Derg released peasants from their financial obligations and rent to landlords through land reforms. However, Mengistu prioritized supplying towns and military with affordable groceries at the cost of rural inhabitants. Officials from the state-run Agricultural Marketing Corporation, AMC, forced peasants to accept minuscule prices for the goods. In 1984, this fixed price was a mere fifth of what it would have been on Addis Ababa's free market. This oppressive practice left rural communities impoverished and powerless in comparison to cities such as Ethiopia's capital. Instead of aiding peasant farmers, Mengistu diverted government resources into promoting state farms, mainly commercial farms nationalized after the revolution. During the 5-year period between 1978 and 1983, an overwhelming majority of the agricultural budget was funneled towards state farms. Unfortunately, due to mismanagement and large investments with minimal returns, these farms only contributed 4% or less of total grain production. With a goal of pushing for collectivization, Mengistu provided every kind of technical assistance and equipment to collective farms, yet they too proved unsuccessful. Shockingly enough, the end result was that Ethiopia became reliant on food imports due to the decline in per capita output caused by his agricultural policies. From October 1983 to May 1984, the Ethiopian highlands experienced only a few scattered showers while the Belg rains were completely absent, an occurrence that decimated the spring harvest. A combination of extreme drought and military oppression left Tigray and Wollo in ruin. To acquire money for nourishment, thousands of farmers sold their animals, tools, and other belongings. These desperate families abandoned their farms to go towards relief centers with the simple aim of survival. The shelters, otherwise known as relief centers, were quickly inundated by desperate individuals and their resources tapped out. It was discovered that in February 1984, 10,000 people passed away at shelters every week. The number had doubled a mere month later to 16,000 deaths per week. In total, 5 million people hovered perilously close to death. People were dying of slow starvation. Some bodies twitched helplessly, some writhed in agony as hunger ate away their living tissue, some lay still, alive but barely distinguishable from the dead. It was like walking through an open graveyard. Given Mengistu's lack of initiative to address the situation or even sound an alert, Western donors were not moved to deal with the crisis in a timely manner. Western governments were wary of Mengistu's oppressive communist regime, irritated by his vitriolic anti-Western rhetoric, and angered by the excessive funds spent on the 10th anniversary celebrations as well as defense. More than half of Ethiopia's budget was dedicated to maintaining a military force with 300,000 military personnel in action. Western leaders were resolute in making sure that Western aid was not utilized to empower the regime, allowing it to allocate resources towards waging wars while leaving the West with disastrous repercussions from hunger. While thousands of lives were being lost in Tigray and Wollo every week, Mengistu shut off foreign access to the famine-stricken regions. Donor representatives and journalists were prohibited from traveling there as well, and not a word was spoken about this tragedy in the media throughout summertime. Newspapers were filled instead with glowing descriptions about preparations for the founding Congress of the Workers' Party and the 10th anniversary celebrations. When the summer Mayher rains failed, causing even greater peril, still no alarm was raised. Destitute peasants arriving in Addis Ababa were rounded up and expelled from the city. The scale of the disaster had become too great to hide for much longer. At the end of September, the Christian Relief Development Association, an umbrella organization for relief agencies in Addis Ababa, sent a direct appeal to the UN's disaster relief organization asking for immediate and extraordinary action, warning that otherwise hundreds of thousands of people will die. Aware of the potential harm his reputation might endure, Mengistu eventually paid attention to what he labeled the drought problem and lifted travel restrictions on representatives from donor countries and foreign journalists. In October, a Kenyan television cameraman, Mohammed Amin, arrived in Quorum. He produced a 7-minute film, together with a commentary by Michael Burke, which was broadcast on the BBC on the 23rd of October, and then across 425 television stations around the world. From that day on, the world came to realize the true horrors of the Ethiopian famine. Governments and politicians scrambled to respond, pledging aid and dispatching Air Force transport planes. In Britain, Irish pop singer Bob Geldof organized the recording of a fundraising record, "Do They Know It's Christmas?" that received massive support. In the United States, the singer Harry Belafonte called up a galaxy of stars to record "We Are the World," a song written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie and arranged by Quincy Jones. Global viewers from 108 countries tuned in to witness the renowned Live Aid 24-hour rock concert, broadcasted simultaneously across Britain and America. Generous donations topped $100 million that day, a sum of generosity that still leaves us astonished today. Over the course of just 1 year, a staggering $1 billion was raised and funneled towards providing relief aid to Ethiopia by both government and non-government agencies from countries in the West. A deluge of visitors descended on Ethiopia on fact-finding missions: politicians, churchmen, singers and actors. Despite the immense suffering of his citizens, Mengistu showed little concern and only made a single short trip to 2 locations in the disaster area, barely spending 30 minutes on the ground. Coming up with his own solution to the issue, Mengistu was determined to put it into action. He declared in November that he had a plan which involved relocating 300,000 families comprising 1.5 million people from drought-prone areas of Tigray and Wollo to more arable lands in southeast Ethiopia over the span of 1 year. Thousands tried to escape the resettlement camps despite the risk of being shot. The entire program was an abysmal failure. It's estimated that over 1 million people perished in the Ethiopian famine of 1984, and without Western aid, this figure would have been much higher. Fortunately, generous support from abroad saved countless thousands of lives. Unfortunately, much of the aid was blocked from reaching a large swath of Tigray by TPLF guerrillas. Despite strenuous efforts by Western diplomats, Mengistu adamantly refused to allow safe passage for relief to 3 million civilians living there. For the people of Tigray, there was to be no respite. In February 1985, even as the relief operation was struggling to cope with the disaster, Mengistu launched the 8th offensive in Tigray, bringing yet more devastation. Ethiopia's woes continued. By the late 80s, support for the Mengistu regime was waning. After a failed coup in 1989, the groundswell of discontent only increased in ferocity. By 1990, the Soviet Union had essentially ceased its backing for Mengistu's regime. In May 1991, the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, EPRDF, forces advanced on Addis Ababa from all sides, and Mengistu fled the country with 50 family and Derg members. By the gracious invitation of Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe, he was granted asylum in Zimbabwe. He has been residing there ever since, even surviving an assassination attempt in 1995, while he was out walking with his wife, near his home in the Gun Hill suburb of Harare. All attempts to extradite him back to Ethiopia have proved futile.